Maneuvering the financial aspects for any business can be at times overwhelming. For one local business, it has been shattering. It was reported that one of our beloved Nevada City businesses was fined thousands of dollars by Visa because they charged a 50-cent fee for any sale under $6. This fine was a first-time offense. It is important that business owners know the Visa laws, which state there will be no surcharges and no percentage increases for credit card use. Small businesses will always do best with cash, but consumers also want the convenience of the card. Many retailers were or are charging a fee for card use versus increasing prices to account for the surcharges. This practice may not be the right decision. And here to help us figure all this out is Martin Jacobs from Card Connect Services. Welcome, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Lynn.
This is it can be a complicated issue.
Yes.
First off, I'd love to hear more about you and your company, and then if we can, kind of jump into the surcharge issue, and you can make sense of it for our audience, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Martin Jacobs. I'm with Card Connect Services, and we are a local merchant services provider. We provide everything from technology, software solutions to run your business, all the way out to the payment processing side of it, which also includes the physical terminals, the hardware you typically might see on a countertop, and then virtual terminals also if you're running an online business or things like that. So what was pointed out in this story is the charges that this business accrued from Visa. I think it's important to understand the two different governing bodies that can place fees on a business in the context of operating within a merchant surcharge program. One of them is the major card brands like Visa, MasterCard, or Amex. Visa tends to set the rules, if I can say it that way. They are the largest card brand issuer in the world. And like in most industries, the bigger the player, the more influence they tend to have over that industry, and the industry tends to follow. So the Visa rules that are set are typically, in all aspects of the industry, those rules are of a high importance, and most people tend to look at those.
So they have boundaries around fees and such that the vendors, our little small businesses can charge.
Yes, and so a merchant surcharge program is a legal program.
Right.
It's legal in most states. It is legal in California in certain industries. So there was a bill that was passed last year, and this bill helps clear things up here. It was Bill SB 478, was signed in and went into effect July 1st of 2024.
So it's pretty recent.
It is pretty recent. I think this is where a lot of the confusion comes in, because I might talk to a business owner who initiated a merchant surcharge program 2 or 3 years ago, and they say, well, the surcharge program is legal. I don't understand. And that would be correct if it was 2 or 3 years ago. But this new bill is less than a year old. So a lot of merchants have not been made aware of that, either by the payment processing company that they work with,
right,
or by way of doing their own research.
Ouch.
And it can definitely hurt. So again, the two major governing bodies are the card brand issuers like Visa, MasterCard, and Amex, and then also your state government, both of which can issue fines. In this case, it looks like a fine came strictly from Visa, but fines can also come from the state of California. So knowing how to navigate those waters is a large part of what I do.
Right. And is there a federal oversight component to this as well?
There definitely is, and it's a conversation that you and I could be here till next week having. And so to avoid getting lost in the weeds of all that, I do want to make a disclosure also that the things we're talking about is general information designed to to create a general framework of understanding of how these things work. In the particular case mentioned here, my guess, without getting into it, without having spoken to the merchant, but based on these numbers here that I'm seeing, is that they were out of Visa compliance in this way, that they were charging more than what they're charged to run the transaction.
Got it.
So Visa actually caps it at 3%. It used to be 4%, but I believe in April of 2023, that went from 4% to 3%. So Visa now, according to Visa regulation, a merchant can no longer charge more than 3% as a surcharge. Most of us have gone to a restaurant where when we get the final bill, we see that there's been convenience fees or surcharge fees added to the bill. And even under this new bill, SB 478, that is legal for restaurants, grocery stores, and other food-related industries. For the majority of other industries, it is not legal. So to be clear,
What kinds of industries? Can you give us an idea? Just a couple.
Yeah, auto shops, retail shops of all different sorts, lumber supply companies. The only industry that was really left out or exempt from this new bill is food-related services, and even at that, not all food-related services within the industry. So it's a dynamic conversation that really needs to be looked at on a case-to-case basis. So again, just having the general conversation, I get the question all the time, is it legal? And again, the short answer is yes, it's legal for some food-related industries, but in general, merchant surcharging is not legal. The solution to that, when merchants are looking for ways to offset the credit card processing fees, which can be quite substantial.
Sure.
If your profit margin is 20% and you're having to, let's say 90% of your customers are paying with a credit card, and that fee is costing the merchant or the business owner 3%, well, 3% out of 20% is pretty substantial. So merchants, business owners have been looking for ways to offset those fees. In the past, again, a merchant surcharge program would have been a great way to do that. So now what businesses are starting to do is move more toward a dual pricing model or a cash discounting model.
Right.
A dual pricing model is something we're all familiar with. It's been around for decades. You've probably seen as you're driving down the road, you'll see gas stations with two different prices.
Yes. I was going to ask you about gas.
So a surcharge program is different than dual pricing. And the entire premise around even this law here is that there's full price transparency. And so this law, it's also referred to as the honest pricing law. It doesn't seek to price control. It seeks to make sure that the consumer has the full price in front of them prior to purchase. In other words, the price that I see on the shelf is the price I should expect to pay at the register. When you contrast that to a surcharge program, I might see an item on the shelf for $10. When I get to the register, it's $10 plus the 3%. Well, if somebody's trying to run a budget and they have a shopping cart full of goods worth $100 or $500 and they think that they can afford that shopping cart, when they get to the register and you put 3% on top of that, that can create a different scenario. And so again, price presentation and transparency is really the premise of what this law is seeking to accomplish so that the consumer's not surprised. And again, full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer. This is just an interpretation that anybody can find, and we'll post the URL so you can look this information up yourself as well.
That'd be great. That'd be helpful. You know, when I go to the nail salon, as an example, and they ask cash or card, it's always card, by the way, and I just just to complicate things even further, I tried to use Venmo at this nail salon the other day, and my bank is no longer using Venmo. Interesting. So they're using Zelle. But anyway, we'll have you back for that. But she said she charges $1 extra for a credit card transaction. So that's sort of like, you know, not a cash discount per se, but it's an additional charge on the fee.
Yes, and there were programs that were split charges where, you know, the merchant would say, they would approach it from a fairness perspective and say, well, I don't want to absorb the entire cost of credit card processing, but I don't want to put that entire cost on the customer. Where can we meet in the middle? A lot of people are familiar with Square, and so Square carries typically a 3% cost. And so 3% tends to be an industry standard. And so a merchant might say, I'll cover 1.5%, and then the customer can cover 1.5%. So that might be where that came from. I'm not sure. I don't know what program they're set up on, but
They did a good job on my nails. I just want to, I didn't mind paying the extra dollar.
Yes, just making sure that that dollar is not above and beyond the actual cost of running that transaction.
Right. Well, thank you so much for giving us a bit of a framework about this. And in the show notes, we'll put the URL that where people can do some more investigations. And if they do want to call you for advice, how can they reach you?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me would be an email. I'll be more than happy to supply you with that.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very
My
interesting.
pleasure. Thank you, Lynn.